Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the episode of the Raymond Hall Show. And for all you dedicated followers, you can look at me and obviously tell that I am not Raymond Hall. No, sir. So, Mr. Hall, he's actually up in Sacramento right now. He is an elected senior assemblyman who's up there to do his part to influence the government. As we're moving closer and closer to the election that's next week on next Tuesday, November the 6th, there's a lot that's going on in order for the future of our government. And so Mr. Hall's up there working diligently to do his part, which we all need to be mindful that we have a part to play in our future. I can tell you how important it is. Like oftentimes when it's time to elect a president, then that's when people have a tendency that, to mount up and to go out and vote. And you should. However, the reality is that we do not choose the president. And I know that might be hard for some people to hear, but we do not choose a president. I mean, there is a popular vote, which is our part in the process. And then there's the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is actually the ones that decide who the next president is going to be. So when you look at, for example, the last election, according to the stats and everything that was out, President Trump, he actually lost a popular vote by over 3 million votes. Yet he still became the president of the United States. And that's just how the system is set up. It's an old, antidated system that obviously needs to evolve to modern day. But the reality is that the Republicans nor the Democrats want that system to change, because the power is either one or two. You vamp the system, then they both could potentially lose power, But this election, in my opinion, is even more important than the election that chooses the presidency. And the reason being is the Electoral College, they are our elected officials. They're the ones that are elected locally to go up to the Congress and the Senate to represent our views, our viewpoints from here in California. And so if your representative, if your elected official did not represent you the way or vote on the things that you wanted, then now is the time for you to hold them accountable. This is an election that does that. And whoever we get into those offices now are going to be in charge of the next voting for the president. And so I would say look and see who your elected official is, see how they voted for or against a lot of the bills and stuff that was passed, and whether or not if that represented you. And if it didn't, then you have to decide whether or not that you're going to, as they say, let sleeping dogs lie, let them stay in office, and could potentially continue to vote on things that don't represent you, or you can go out and vote and make sure that they're, like I said, held accountable. Also, there's some propositions that's going to be on there, and those propositions can sometimes be a little confusing. They're confusing to me, and by no means do I claim to be an expert on propositions. Because a lot of it is written, when you read them in their entirety, they're written in what we call lawyer language, and could be very confusing as far as to understand what the heck is it really saying. And then it's confusing because you have the people who are for it, who are pointing out all the reasons why you should vote for it. And then you have the people who are against it, who are pointing out all the reasons why you shouldn't vote for it. So, which oftentimes confuses us, the voters, because many of us don't spend or don't have the time to dig into each proposition and know what is it really saying. My mom used to always tell me that whenever you have people for and against, somewhere in the middle is the truth. And so that's what we're trying to figure out and find out, that middle part. So on this particular election on November 6th, there's actually 11 propositions that are going to be on the ballot. And so what I recommend is that, you take a little time throughout your day, whether you can spare half an hour a day from now up until voting time to be a little bit more familiar with the propositions, as well as to be more familiar with those who are representing you out in Washington, and make sure that we hold them accountable. Oftentimes we talk about how the congressmen and the senators, how they do what they want to do, and no one's there to hold them accountable. Why isn't the government holding them accountable? Well, the reality is we're the ones who are supposed to hold them accountable. If they're not representing us, then get them out of there. If they're representing and they're doing stuff that's morally right, then you and doing things that's in the best interest of the people, then keep them in there. A lot of the politicians that I see, they're supposed to be servants of the people, but a lot of them that I see are serving themselves. That's why lobbyists are up there. Lobbyists are up there paying them off. So those are the things that kind of affect our government, and we just need to be mindful. I am a registered Democrat. However, that being said, I don't just vote for someone because they're a Democrat, and I think that that's another dangerous thing. Just voting for someone because they are a Democrat. Because in the Democratic Party, you got people who are moral, who have high standards, and their heart is for the people. But you also have Democrats who are not, and vice versa. You got good Republicans who are serving. Then you got Republicans who are shady. So for me personally, I try to vote for the proposition or vote for the person that I think is going to represent me personally as an individual. That's like, I'm a black man. I love being black, and, but that don't mean that all black people are good, right? So, you got to be mindful of who you're voting for and who you are allowing to lead you. So with that being said, I want to lightly talk about some of the propositions, especially the ones that I feel, resonate with me more so than some of the other ones. And then we only got about a 40-minute show, so can't go deep in depth on all of them, but just kind of scratch the surface so that you can have an idea of what's out there. And the hope and the goal is for when the show is over, that you would go do your diligent research between now and next week, so that when you vote intelligently. And what I mean by intelligently is that the facts. Don't vote because somebody's name sound good. Somebody's name sound honest. I heard one of my friends said that. Well, that congressman just looked like he a liar, and I don't even like the way his name sounds, so I'm not voting for him. That's, to me, that's not the way that you go about setting up the country with leaders who are going to decide the future because you don't like the way their name sound. No, do your research, find out what they believe in. And that's part of the challenge with a lot of the Republican Party, who hold themselves as being the moral party, yet these are the same ones who are allowing number 45 to run amok, to operate immorally, and to operate the way that he's operating, and they're not holding him accountable because they don't want to lose, if you will, any advantage that they have in Washington. So to me, that's just a shame, and we need to hold them accountable, and the prayers that God holds them accountable as well, for how they lead his people. So that being said, we're going to talk about, like I said, there's 11 propositions that's going to actually be on this particular ballot. And if you give me 1 second, my phone is ringing. It's my co-host, and I believe that she might be out in the trying to get in so that she can come in. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and take a little break at this time, and give me a chance to get some water and wet my whistle, and then hopefully that is my co-host, and then we can kind of jump into these propositions and go from there. So again, this is the Raymond Hall Show. I'm Derek Williams, standing in for Mr. Raymond Hall, who's up in Sacramento doing his thing. So when we come back, we'll continue to talk about the propositions and the importance of this election. stated earlier, is a senior elected assemblyman, and he's up in Sacramento doing his part to change how the direction in which this country is going. Before break, I thought my co-host Ms. Mia was outside, but so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and jump into these propositions and just kind of put them out there, scratch the surface, and then when she comes, then we'll just go ahead and take a quick break to introduce her, and because she is the expert on, more so the expert than I am, put it that way. So the first proposition, or proposition number one, is the affordable housing and home purchase assistance for veterans. So this particular proposition, once if it's passed, it would authorize the sale of $4 billion in bonds to help finance the housing program. And not only finance the housing program, but it would 1/4 of that, or $1 billion, would be help veterans to purchase homes and farms, as well as mobile homes. And so if you know, in LA, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in one of the other propositions, LA has a huge homeless problem. And it's a problem that being worked on, but part of the problem is not enough housing for the number of people that live in LA. And so what happens is you have this spillover that and people are living in the streets. You have Skid Row, you have people living in the water beds, and so on and so forth. And it's just part of what's happening. If y'all could hold on one second, I got my co-host calling, so I'm assuming she might be outside. Hey, Miss Mia, you're on the air. How can I help you? Hello? Okay, guess she hung up. Could you have somebody maybe open the gate for her? Because okay, because she's calling me, so please forgive me for that. We're trying to get her up in here. But as I was saying, so we have this huge problem with homelessness. And sad to say, a big portion of that, or a large portion of our homeless community, are veterans. And so that's a concern. To me, one is I am a veteran. And to see my brothers and my sisters who may have had some challenges, now homeless and unable to care for themselves. And so, I just believe in that, serve those who served. We all should be serving our communities in one way or another. And but especially, I'm a little biased to help all the homeless. But, I'm a little more biased towards helping veterans. Because I am a veteran. So that's proposition number one about affordable housing and home purchasing. And the bonds will be used to finance the existing housing programs, as well as build infrastructures and grants to match the local housing trust. And so if we are able to pool this money together and create more housing, to assist those who are homeless. I'm originally from New York, and it's kind of interesting to me that New York and California, really have about the same amount of people. But the strange thing is that California is probably almost 7 to 10 times bigger than New York, geographically speaking. But New Yorkers, what we do is we build vertical up. And California's build horizontal. So a lot of times you'll get these apartment complexes that are maybe 2 stories high. Every now and then it may go to 3, but I haven't seen any. So my question is, or the thought to throw out there is, if we have a huge homeless problem in LA and we're building new housing structures, why not build them higher? I know the stigmatism. I know the stigmatism of having a project in a neighborhood is going to bring something down, but You know, I'd rather have projects than someone having to sleep on the streets. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and our co-host Miss Mia is here. We'll get her situated, and then we'll come back and we'll jump back into these propositions. So again, this is the Raymond Hall Show. I'm Derek Williams, sitting in for Mr. Raymond Hall and Miss Mia. And so we're going to go to break, and then we'll come back at you. 2 and 2, as Chuck Woolery used to say. Welcome back to the Raymond Hall Show. Again, my name is Derek Williams, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Miss Mia McNulty. And so go ahead, Miss Mia, go ahead and introduce yourself,
Hi.
And tell people a little bit about yourself before we begin to jump back into these propositions.
Well, we were on the show about maybe 3 weeks ago. We were doing a breast cancer awareness with our organization, the Nia Imani Heart Association, and that was on October the 20th. And it was at Congresswoman Juanita McDonald Millender's Community Center in Carson.
Okay.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And so you're gonna help get us straight. I was letting them know that you are probably more the resident expert on propositions than I am, and so I was trying to get myself out of the hot seat. Put you in the hot seat, and I can fan you down every now. So we jumped into Proposition 1 that talked a lot about what, if this passed, the $4 billion could be used towards as far as the infrastructure and assisting veterans with this whole homeless issue that we have here in California, and so which is kind of a really good segue into Proposition 2. Proposition 2 is about mental health dollars for low-income housing. So a great portion of those veterans, but just of the homeless, actually have mental illnesses. And, there's also obviously drug problems, et cetera, et cetera. But oftentimes the mentally ill are, because there's no place for them, or very few places for them, I should say, then they oftentimes find themselves in jail, where mental illness is not a crime, so it just needs more assistance. So would you like to talk a little bit more about Proposition 2?
Yeah, Proposition 2, we went over this with our organization. Can't remember what we recommended, but I do believe that we do need more emphasis on the mental health, especially after, I don't know I think it was the Reagan administration when all of the mental health establishments were either closed or reduced. And I think we've seen an increase in homelessness, especially with the mental health.
Yeah,
I remember that. I don't know if he was from California, but it was, forgot when he closed that, but he was at that time the governor. So we had places in Norwalk and things like that were, readily available and accessible. So I think to me, I would want to benefit that. I mean, support that one, because we do need more assistance for the mental health, not just for the adults, but even for some of our youth.
Wow, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it also goes for the and this is for the housing, right? This is for which also goes back to, it's connected with the homelessness.
Correct.
The Skid Row and all that stuff like that. So.
And then even, people are living in their cars now. We have a lot of families now. Even going to school, the school districts, they have to make provisions for, students who are, temporarily homeless.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of times certain people, because I also know that there's people and actually know someone, and what they do is they actually rent a storage unit, a 24-hour storage unit, and they sleep in the storage unit. Wow. Then they have a gym memberip. And then they go. That's where they shower and change clothes, et cetera, et cetera. And then they go around to the different places to feed. So, and by doing that, they pay like $100 a month to. And if you looked at them, you wouldn't know they're homeless,
right?
Because most times we just look at people and say, well, they're homeless, and you can tell by looking at them. Right. But then there's a lot of people that you're walking by, a lot of your a lot of your coworkers and friends and so on and so forth. You would never know that they're homeless because of the pride. So, and maybe something like this could give them some assistance that we don't even know that they need.
I agree. I totally agree.
Then we're going to go down to Proposition 3. You want to tackle Proposition 3?
Well, I think on the face, Proposition 3 looks beneficial to the community. Mm-hmm. My only reservation is that for safe drinking water, we have a lot of fracking going on in certain areas.
What is that, fracking?
Fracking is like, they're drilling for oil in certain areas, like they were doing part of fracking in Carson, Long Beach. I think it was even out here in View Park, and that contaminates the water. What they're pushing and how much water that they're using. So I don't think this proposition really addresses that. But we do need safe drinking water, especially what happened in Compton and in Gardena with the water turning colors, right? Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it's, was it the DWP? I'm not pretty sure what agency it was. They just took over, Compton's water. I think that was this week. It was brown, so I don't think it was safe to drink. So I do agree with that. But we need to go back to how is this going to benefit the community, which I agree with, but sometimes it looks good on the face value. I'm not sure how I supported this one. What about you?
Yeah, with me, I was leaning towards it, and I probably will vote for it only because it's saying it's going to be like between $8 and $9 billion, right?
Okay. Yeah, 8.8.
And for some of the reasons that you stated, is that I didn't know it was called fracking, but with the drilling of water, and we know that California doesn't have the greatest infrastructure when it comes to water that's coming into the homes.
Correct.
And so if there's a way that they can use that $9 billion to improve that, then I would lead that. And then supposedly, and I'll use air quotes, right? The way it's supposed to be written is it's supposed to the disadvantaged neighborhoods, the hoods, the ghettos are supposed to be paramount. They're supposed
Right.
to, and so, I say that with some hope, but, so if they're definitely going to start with us, and we can hold them accountable,
I agree.
Then, get the poisons out the water,
Yeah, I just was reading some of it. It said that it would fishery improvements and money also going to habitat protection, dam repairs, and other programs. And so we do need to make sure we hold them accountable, because maybe all of the resources will go to those particular projects, which will bypass our homes.
Right. Yeah. So I hopefully they got something in place where, they have to divide it a certain way. But all those other things are equally as important.
That's true.
There was something that I guess a lot of the fish, like the tilapia and some other things, they were having like high levels of lead and mercury and stuff like that. And then, so it's kind of scary. So, then we're going to talk a little bit about, again, this is Raymond Hall Show. I'm Derek Williams, and this is Miss Mia McCullum.
No.
I'll be messing it up.
That's okay. It's Dr. Mia McNulty, but don't worry about it. It's
okay.
Mia.
Oh, I'm missing all kinds of stuff. I'm sorry, doctor. I didn't know.
That's Mia. Proposition 4. I just received a couple of emails on Proposition 4 regarding a bond for a children's hospital. And I really think it's a great idea. My only thing is $1.5 billion, as you said before. Is this going to go in our communities? Right. We do need a children's hospital. We do need adequate medical attention for our children, because right now we don't have that, and we have to travel far. And so I know my daughter, Nia, is at Loma Linda, and they were saying that it will go to their hospital also to support some of the things that they're doing, which I agree with. But if we have an immediate need, where could we go? I think we should have something close in our area. So that's my thing. So I didn't know how I voted on this one, so it was up in the air. It's a great a proposition for Children's Hospital. I think we need to find more of these, even clinics, little small clinics, if you can't get to them. But my thing is only if it's supporting our children also. We seems like sometimes we're left out. Not sometimes, majority of times, that we're left out of this equation. And how are we going to implement and make sure that that is not the case?
All right. So now, when they're doing these propositions, do they lay that kind of information out, whether or not where their money is going to go? And
well, it says it's at the University of California. So we know the UC, they have I think UC Davis has a hospital, UCLA, right? So the UC system. In California Children's Services Program, which is a great program for kids. If you're not insured, the kids, it's an excellent program. So I think I voted for it regardless, but I'm just saying, I think when we vote, it's a two-pronged thing. You just don't vote and just stay. You vote and you ask questions, who's implementing it, what agency, and write letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like holding people accountable, because like she said, we can vote for it and we can receive it, and that's great. But if we're not holding our politicians accountable to make sure that they're utilizing the money in the manner that it's supposed to be used, or if it's just sitting there and not being done, then it's like, it knows the fact that we even voted for it. And so I think that that's definitely a great point. If you vote for it, make sure that it's being used accordingly. Then got proposition number 5, and like I said, there's only 11 propositions on this particular election, and then I think there's 5 more in the next election. So it's 16 total. And this one is about granting property tax breaks for seniors and disabled persons. You know, they need it. They need it.
I supported that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of
I supported that one.
a lot of seniors are on fixed incomes. Not only are they on fixed incomes, but they have high medical bills, which is eating away a big portion of their fixed income. And then so they need as many breaks as they can get. I was reading an article that was stating that where the people live the longest are in tribal communities. And part of the reason why the tribal communities, they live longer is because the young people actually appreciate and value the knowledge and wisdom of their elderly. And in the Western world and in the United States, there's this trend where we're just taking our elderly and
placing them in the home.
Yeah, if they're lucky, they're just being thrown out to the wolves to fend for themselves. And I know it's a sad for me. It's just really sad that we don't care for those who have sacrificed their lives for us and to put us in a position where we could be better off than what we would have been. And then now that we got a couple little pennies in our pocket, we're gonna push mom and papa aside. I don't know. It's just sad, and because that's not where we as Black people. That's not where we come from.
No, that's not our history.
Right, that's not our history, and so
that's not our history. We all were very inclusive. So from Africa and even back in the South, grandmothers was in the house and grandfathers and greats. So going back to this, I think this is a good proposition. So I did support it, and so hopefully everyone else will.
Yeah, me equally so. Take care of our elderly. I don't call them old. Take care of our wise. Now, this one was interesting. Proposition 6, talking about repealing the gas tax. I was not in support of this personally. Okay. And the reason being is because the gas people, they make all the money. Okay. Well, they make big money, and so so they were being taxed. Okay. From my understanding, and the taxes made from that they made was being used to improve the roads and
supposedly improve the roads.
Supposedly, that's what they say. But a lot of people say it though. So that's what it's supposed to be used for. Okay. But from my understanding, that if they repeal the tax, then they're going to pass that tax on to the voters. So to the people, meaning the people have to pay higher taxes. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
Now, this one was tricky. I don't know what I did with this. I think I looked on who was supporting this one when my pamphlet came out. And I can't remember which way I voted on that. But I always had an issue with the gas tax, only because the DMV with the long lines and the services and the streets and the road condition and the infrastructure, it's just I think 20 to 30 years, beyond right. What it should be. So I'm wondering if something else should have been included in this proposition regarding how much of the money would go to constructing the streets and things of that sort. Right. And so anytime you say tax, people say repeal it, yes. But sometimes you need a tax so that things could be proper for us to drive on. So
and the reality is somebody's going to pay for it.
Right.
So you can say repeal a tax. So oftentimes we say, well, do we want, basically it's two things. Are the rich going to pay for it? Or are the poor going to pay for it? And, or middle class, but they say the middle class is dissolving away. So it's going to be the rich or the poor. So the question is, who's going to pay for it? And my thing is, if the rich is getting richer off of it, then allow them to pay for it, But like I said, it can sometimes get a little tricky to understand, and that's what I was saying earlier, that you have people for it and people against it, and but usually they each have agendas.
Right.
And it's just so like my mama used to say, if you got two people arguing, you got the truth is usually somewhere in the middle.
In the middle. Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And that's kind of what when I was looking at this, it's like, yeah. But apparently, Governor Jerry Brown, he fought hard against it.
Yes, I was just reading it.
Yeah.
So he fought against it, and I don't know who Josh Newsom and what area he's from. He's a Democrat. Yeah.
Okay. So. No, I mean, honestly, like Proposition 7, revisiting the daylight savings. I was like, come on, really? Like, there's a couple of propositions. I was like, why are you even wasting taxpayers' money? Because for something to become a prop, it takes a lot of money to get it up there because there's so many things that are vying to be propositions to be voted on into bills. And so to me, like this is a slot, a place that could have, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, in my opinion, that could have been used for something more valuable for us as a community. I get up an hour earlier. I sleep an hour later. It's a little darker when I go outside. Like what Republican and what Democrat said, I think this would be a good idea. I don't know.
Well, it's two sides. I understand both sides. So Arizona and California, Arizona doesn't participate in daylight savings time. So if you ever know, if you fly to Arizona, you'll leave at 6 and you'll be there at 6 because they don't participate. Some of the states that don't participate indicate that it's a high propensity of car accidents and falling asleep and things of that sort, which they have some stats to prove. And on the other end, some people don't like to get up when it's dark and things of that sort. So I can kind of see both sides.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you got, 350 million people in the United States. Yeah. I'll have to say yes. I guess. I don't know.
I just give you some information on it. I guess we've been so used to it now. I don't think changing it would make a difference.
Yeah. And the stats probably have some validity to it. But there's also stats that show that before they put speed limits, it was less accidents.
Yes.
And so when they start putting speed limits, then more accidents start happening.
That's right.
But yeah, you don't see them trying to say, "Hey, remove the speed limits."
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So we are, as human beings, are very adaptable. So yeah, maybe in the beginning, maybe that's so. But I mean, eventually, I guess you would adapt if they. But, I mean, we're already used to it. Why spend? I don't know how much it costs to become a proposition. Why spend all that money to try to change it?
It's a call.
So we're getting a sign that there is a call coming in. Again, this is the Raymond Hall Show where we are having a different kind of conversation. And so, caller, you're on.
Well, good afternoon. This is Raymond Hall, and I want to thank both hosts for stepping in and standing up. I'm here in California at the 38th Annual California Senior Legislature Session, and I just wanted to touch in and say hello, and the session has started. We'll be here in Sacramento working on legislative proposals for seniors in the state of California here for the next 3 days. I want to express that the importance of everyone voting. I know you all have been talking about voting, so I want to just express the importance of everybody voting. This is our last show before November the 6th. So just wanted to check in. How are you all doing?
Well, we're doing fine. I mean, I'm no Raymond Hall, but, I'm doing my best. How's things going up there?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all again.
You're welcome.
Are you being rough on up there?
No, actually, it's just really a wonderful thing. The California Senior Legislature, what we do is we put forth legislative proposals, and we rank them, and the highest rated proposals are moved forward to the regular California legislature. And if they pick it up and sponsor it and carry it through, then those proposals become laws.
Right.
And that's how you may get some of the laws here in California, and some of the proposals may go on to be federal proposals here throughout the country. So just wanted to check in and say hello, and thank you all so very much for stepping in and continuing to carry forth the banner of service. And I'm going to let you all continue to do what you do, and I'm going to go on into the session because it just started. But I just wanted to check in and say hello, and thank you all so very much, and see you next week.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Mr. Hall, and we will thank you for calling into your own show.
Talk to you later.
All right, brother.
Bye-bye.
So, all right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So, again, the Raymond Hall Show, and like I said, he's up in Sacramento doing his part. And we're coming close to the end of the show, and there's a couple of two big propositions that are on the ballot. Proposition 8 that deals with the limiting of the dialysis centers,
Right.
And then Prop 10, and which has to do with the removal of the Rent Act, I believe it is, or allowing local authorities to enact rent control.
Correct.
Because there's a lot of cities like Long Beach and other cities that do not have rent control.
Correct.
And right now in Long Beach, I can speak of like 2 bedrooms are going close to $3,000 now.
What?
So so if it keeps going up, then what is going to add to the problem that we talked about earlier of homelessness. So, and then with the dialysis centers, I'll let you touch on that really quickly. As far as it's supposed to be, I'm confused. Because one ad said it was going to close down dialysis centers, and then another ad said that it's going to limit the amount of money that dialysis centers can charge. So I don't really know.
I think it was kind of both. I think really what the authors of this proposition really wanted was to make sure that the machines were properly cleaned. A lot of the machines were properly cleaned, and patients were going in and being infected and getting sick. Mm-hmm. And so I think they could have wrote it in a different way to address that.
Gotcha.
And then the dialysis centers, like DaVita and things like that, so they came out against it.
Okay.
Saying that, if we do this, we'll take more time away, and and we might have to close our centers, and if you try to limit the amount that we get. Right, so of course you can only get a certain amount from Medi-Cal or Medicaid for your insurance anyway. Okay. So that was kind of
and if they start closing centers, you know where they're gonna start first. So
all right,
I was just throwing that out there, catch it wherever it lands, So again, we're coming again. We want to thank you all for joining us here on the Raymond Hall Show, and I'm Derek Williams.
I am Dr. Mia McNulty, and it was a pleasure, and thank you.
All right, and tell them how they can get a hold of you again if they have any questions.
I'm the founder and CEO of the Nia Imani Heart Association. We have a Facebook page with Nia Imani Heart Association, or you can email me at niasheart@gmail.com, niasheart@gmail.com.
Okay, and I'm Derek Williams, and you could contact me at focus2hypnosis@gmail.com if you have any questions. Again, thank you for joining us here on the Raymond Hall Show, and hopefully we have sparked you to have a different conversation at your tables.
Thank you.